a $2 billion destroyer, the world's most advanced Aegis radar. And yet at 1438, the USS Spruance found itself blind. 30 miles north, a Tier 1 classified operation was vulnerable. On the scope, nothing but wooden fishing boats. But hidden in the fiberglass and diesel was an IRGC Sea Ghost, closing the gap at 50 knots. The computer couldn't get a lock. The 5-inch gun was firing blind. What happens when the world's most powerful navy meets a threat it wasn't built to see? You're about to find out. Unknown to the radar operator, at first one of the OSCE innocent-looking contacts was no ordinary fishing vessel. It was a lethal PACAP-class fast attack boat operated by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, bristling with 2 deadly anti-ship missiles locked and loaded on its rails. The order came swiftly from higher command, close in aggressively on the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group. Both powerful diesel engines roared to full throttle. The sleek fiberglass hull exploded out of the fishing cluster like a predator unleashed, accelerating hard across the swells. This was no random encounter. It was a calculated ambush, born of deep-seated regional hostilities, with the IRGC deliberately exploiting the cluttered littoral environment to mask its intentions. The boat, weighing around 14 tons and built for lightning strikes, had been drifting passively among the dhows for over an hour, its low radar signature making it nearly invisible against the wave clutter. Now with engines hammering, it tore forward at blistering speeds, approaching 52 knots, turning the serene patrol into an immediate life-or-death naval duel. Aboard the Spruance, the tactical action officer, the officer responsible for deciding exactly what fires and when, wasted no time. He keyed the command net even before full classification of the contact was complete, his voice cutting through the tension with urgent precision. Forward of the bridge, the ship's 5-inch Mark 45 gun mount slewed rapidly toward the incoming, bearing its barrel locking onto the threat with mechanical determination. The Mark 45 is a proven naval artillery system capable of hurling 70-pound shells over long distances with devastating effect. Its advanced fire control computer integrates real-time data on target position, wind speed, ship motion, wave, action, and even Coriolis effects to predict precisely where the projectile will intersect the target's path. But here, the system slammed into a brutal technical challenge that highlighted the asymmetric nature of this fight. The PACAP's hull was constructed primarily of fiberglass, a material that produces faint, inconsistent radar returns barely stronger than the surrounding sea surface itself. Steel-hulled warships return crisp, solid echoes that allow stable tracking. Fiberglass, however, scatters signals erratically. Every passing wave crest caused the return to flicker like a failing light bulb, disrupting the computer's need for 2 consecutive stable pings to generate a reliable firing solution. It was the naval equivalent of trying to thread a rifle shot through a moving picket fence while balancing on a pitching deck in heavy seas. The gun team fired on the final stable track they could lock. The shell's time of flight was just 3 seconds. In those fleeting moments, a boat screaming at 52 knots covered nearly 80 meters, far enough to throw the impact off by dozens of meters. The first round plunged into the ocean 40 meters behind the speeding PACAP, sending a towering waterspout erupting skyward. The concussion slammed through the boat's hull like a sledgehammer striking sheet metal, rattling the helmsman to his core and soaking the fantail in churning foam. Close, dangerously close, but not enough to disable the vessel. The gun reacquired, recalculated under immense pressure, and fired again. Yet the track jumped once more between trigger pull and impact, the shell landing 40 meters to the left amid the 3 to 4 foot swells. The Mark 45 was performing exactly as designed in exercises against predictable steel targets in calm conditions. But this was no drill. A lightweight fiberglass hull, jinking unpredictably at high speed through confused seas, stacked every variable against the gunners. 12 rounds had already been expended, leaving just 8 in the ready drum. Reloading would take a critical 2 minutes, 2 minutes of agonizing silence from the destroyer's only immediately available surface weapon, while the PKAP closed another 3.5 kilometers toward the distant carrier. That distance mattered immensely because full classification had now confirmed the nightmare scenario. Kausar anti-ship missiles, Iranian-built copies of Chinese designs, mounted and ready on the rails. These sea-skimming threats offered a range of up to 20 kilometers and flew fast enough to give the carriers close-in weapon systems mere seconds of warning before impact. 2 of them, armed, aimed at American lives. The IRGC helmsman followed standard aggressive attack doctrine without hesitation, full throttle bow on, to minimize radar cross-section to something smaller than a garage door, and sharp jinks every few seconds to throw off tracking. The boat behaved more like an enraged jet ski than a conventional warship, its crew committed to pushing inside 10 kilometers before unleashing hell. Tensions between the United States and Iran had simmered for years in these waters, fueled by proxy conflicts, sanctions, and competing claims over vital shipping lanes. This probe represented a brazen escalation testing American resolve in the most direct way possible. With the gun forced into a temporary ceasefire, the tactical action officer made the decisive call. Launch the helicopter. The MH-60R Romeo had been spinning up its rotors since the very first suspicious radar paint. Deck crew yanked away chocks as powerful rotor wash whipped across the flight deck. The pilot skipped every non-essential checklist item, prioritizing airborne status above all else. This Seahawk variant is the Navy's ultimate maritime Swiss Army knife, equally lethal whether hunting submarines beneath the waves or delivering precision strikes against surface threats. Each Romeo can carry up to 4 AGM-114R Hellfire missiles on its stub pylons. In the left seat, the sensor operator had already slewed the AN/AAS-52 multispectral targeting system onto the bearing. This advanced electro-optical pod with its high-resolution thermal camera can pick out fine details from miles away, effectively reading a license plate at extreme ranges under the right conditions. The helicopter lifted off aggressively, nose-dipping as the pilot traded altitude for raw speed, racing forward at 150 knots just 200 feet above the white-capped waves. The pilot acquired the PKAP almost instantly, a blazing white thermal streak cutting across the cooler blue ocean exhaust trailing like a lit fuse. Range to the Lincoln was dropping fast at 11 kilometers when the Iranian helmsman's hand hovered over the Kausar firing switch. Then the radar warning receiver aboard the boat screamed to life, laser designation detected from an airborne source. There was no outrunning this. A Hellfire missile leapt off the rail, riding its semi-active laser beam straight into the fiberglass hull. Unlike the blind sledgehammer swings of naval gunfire, the Hellfire acts like a precision needle guided by an unbreakable thread of reflected energy. The boat jinked violently. The missile jinked with it, maintaining lock with circular error probable measured in mere inches rather than the 80-meter misses of the gun. Weighing 49 kilograms total, with an 11-kilogram shaped charge warhead, the Hellfire closed at over 475 meters per second. In under 4 seconds, it covered the equivalent of a major city-to-suburb distance. The PKAP did not simply sink. It ceased to exist in a cataclysmic fireball. One frame on the forward-looking infrared showed a high-speed threat racing toward the carrier. The next frame displayed only scattered debris and burning fuel slick spreading across 200 meters of the Arabian Sea. From initial radar contact to destruction, the entire sequence unfolded in just 11 intense minutes. 4 critical calls in rapid succession. Cease gunfire, launch helo. Designate target, engage, each one executed flawlessly by a crew drilled relentlessly for exactly this kind of chaotic, high-threat littoral brawl. What an incredible display of coordinated naval aviation power under pressure. What do you think, could the 5-inch gun have eventually scored a hit if the helicopter hadn't been available so quickly, or was the fiberglass stealth too much of a game changer in those seas? But that first PKAP was merely the opening act, a deliberate sacrificial probe designed to draw out and expend American defensive resources. As the Romeo circled the smoldering wreckage, its forward-looking infrared scanner revealed the true danger. 2 additional PKAP-class contacts had broken from the distant Dow cluster the instant the first boat erupted in flames. They were now sprinting at maximum speed toward the Iranian coastline, desperate to reach the safety of hidden underground facilities. The initial attacker had absorbed the response, revealed American tactics and weapon employment, and bought precious time for its comrades. By morning, those surviving boats could return reloaded with fresh missiles, wiser from the engagement data collected during the probe. Worse, the helicopter's radar emissions, the bright missile plume, and the massive explosion had lit up the littoral like a beacon, alerting the entire IRGC coastal network. Surveillance radars along the southern shore of Qeshm Island spun to life. A Tor-M1 short-range air defense battery, a Russian-supplied system known for its rapid reaction, rolled out from concealed revetments toward an overlooking headland. These underground boat pens, honeycombing the limestone cliffs, represented a major strategic asset. The Iranians had worked hard to keep secret fortified tunnels capable of sheltering fast attack craft and missile reloads from aerial observation and strike. Orbiting high over western Iraq, on prolonged armed overwatch, burning fuel at a steady rate for 4 straight hours, was an aircraft the Air Force had long debated retiring, the A-10 Thunderbolt II, affectionately and accurately nicknamed the Warthog. Call signs Pelican 31 and 32 received the vector from the E-2D Hawkeye and immediately banked southeast. The A-10 was engineered from the ground up for precisely these kinds of messy, close-in fights. Slow enough to loiter for hours on station, rugged enough to absorb punishment that would down faster jets, and armed to deliver overwhelming firepower exactly where it hurts most. Its twin TF-34 turbofans sipped fuel efficiently, providing up to 6 hours of endurance even with external tanks. Unlike fuel-hungry fighters that would have already needed a tanker, the Warthogs were still comfortable after 4 hours aloft. Pelican 31 carried the ideal loadout for this mission: AGM-65 D Maverick infrared guided missiles, optimized for hardened targets, plus over 1,000 rounds of 30mm depleted uranium ammunition, feeding the legendary GAU-8/A Avenger cannon. This 7-barrel rotary gun spits up to 3,900 rounds per minute, delivering armor-piercing incendiary power originally designed to shred Soviet tanks during the Cold War, but now proving equally lethal against fast-moving naval targets. The Lightning targeting pod on the starboard pylon, a third-generation infrared sensor locked onto the fleeing boats at 15 miles. It didn't just detect heat, it discriminated details, revealing exhaust plumes glowing hot against the dark water as the PKAPs pushed toward Qeshm at over 50 knots. After hours of monotonous patrol with nothing but cold coffee and empty ocean, the mission had transformed into the high adrenaline reason these pilots had joined the service. The lead pilot made a bold, tactical choice that few fast jets could replicate. Rather than splash the boats immediately, he would shadow them home. Destroying them in open water would eliminate 2 threats, but leave the hidden tunnel complex untouched and unknown. By following, he could expose the entire facility tunnels, pen support infrastructure that CENTCOM had no prior intelligence on just an hour earlier. At 220 knots and just 5,000 feet above the water, an A-10 Warthog slipped into the chaos. Its low heat signature was nearly invisible against the inferno of modern battlefield sensors, as Iranian PACAP attack boats raced toward a hidden coastal tunnel carved into limestone cliffs. Within seconds, the situation escalated from stealth reconnaissance to a life-or-death engagement. A Tor M1 air defense system locked on, reducing the pilot's options to 3 brutal choices: retreat and lose the target dive into terrain-hugging survival, or press forward into near-certain missile fire. What followed was a masterclass in raw combat instinct. The pilot chose aggression, weaving through cliffs to break radar locks and unleashing a devastating 1-second burst of 30mm fire that obliterated the second boat in a storm of debris. However, he was immediately countered by a heat-seeking missile that nearly ended the mission in a flash of fire. Perfectly timed flares saved the aircraft by fractions of a second, while a wingman executed a precision strike that triggered a massive rock collapse, sealing the hidden naval base forever and eliminating a critical IRGC asset in one coordinated strike. In under high minutes, 3 attack boats were destroyed, an underground facility was buried, and a high-risk mission turned into a decisive victory. This proved that in modern warfare, speed and stealth alone are not enough. Persistence, precision, and fearless execution still dominate the battlefield. This explosive encounter reveals a deeper truth about today's conflicts, where asymmetric tactics collide with adaptive firepower in unpredictable ways, forcing both sides to evolve or be erased. But the question remains, is the A-10A relic many tried to retire still the ultimate close combat predator? Or is this the last glimpse of its dominance before faster, stealthier systems take over? Share your perspective below and stay with us as this high-stakes confrontation continues to unfold in real time. Click subscribe now. Don't miss a single moment of this historic journey. Your time is valuable. We promise analyses as sharp as reality itself. Stay vigilant. Stay informed. We'll see you in the next video. Disclaimer: this video contains content generated or supported in whole or in part by artificial intelligence. This material is intended solely for simulation, illustration, and entertainment purposes. It does not represent real-world events, nor does it constitute political or military advice or verified information. Certain elements may be fictional, dramatized, or inaccurate. Viewers should not rely on this video as a credible source of information or as a basis for real-world decision-making.